is this going to affect your contract? My answer is yes, it has to. You already have a signed contract with the district. And so is this going to modify your contract? I don't know how it can't, because you already have a signed contract for next year. And so whatever this new agreement is, it has to be a modification of the existing contract that you already signed. And so that's going to necessarily be a modification of the contract that you already signed. I don't know what that's going to do to it until I see what they're asking you to do. And so my answer to anyone who says, should I sign this? My answer up front is no, until you get some advice. And until I know what they're asking of you, I don't know why you would sign it. You may have gotten was that sent out, Jackie, what we provided yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, so you probably got what the union sent out yesterday, the advisory that was sent out yesterday, which stated just that. Don't sign this until you get advice on what this does to your contract. And it's just that simple. They may tell you that if you have to sign this today, that's just simply not the truth, okay? They're not going to fire you if you don't sign it right then, because you have a contract. And so your job is not in jeopardy if you say, I want to get advice before I sign this. They're not going to fire you because they can't. All right. You already have a job and you have a contract, and that contract gives you rights. And one of those rights is they can't just fire you. And so don't be bullied into signing something that modifies your rights under an existing contract until you get advice on what this does to you. In other words, don't give up important rights in exchange for something that you're not sure what you're giving up, because you may not be able to get back what you gave up. And so my best advice is, let us find out what they're asking you to give up before you accept something else. Let me give you the best example I can. About 25 years ago, HISD went to all the administrators and said, we've got this great deal for you. We're going to give you $5,000 a year more if you'll waive your Chapter 21 rights. And every administrator, almost every administrator in the district, said, that's a good deal. We're going to take this $5,000 bonus and we're going to give up our Chapter 21 rights. And they all took it. And then one by one, they started pecking off the ones they didn't like. And they started firing them. And they all came to me and they said, can you help me? And I said, no, you dumbass. You gave up your right to a hearing and you took $5,000. And they said, well, that $5,000 I got last year. I said, exactly. Now you don't have any extra money and you gave up your right to a hearing. How's that feel this year? All right. So don't give up something that looks like a good deal until we can tell you if it really is a deal. All right. That's the best thing I can tell you right now. Now, if you have a question, raise your hand. I think there's a hand thing that you can raise and I'll answer your questions. Anybody?
Okay, I'll unmute.
Oh, Allison. Go ahead and turn your mic on, Allison, and ask me your question.
Okay, hello. Thank you.
You bet.
So in my situation, I would like to leave the current school that I'm at. And the only way I can do that is to go to an NES school. So today is my last day to resign. So they're telling me I need to sign today or resign today. So listening to you, I'm kind of in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, tell me what that means. Who told you you can't transfer to another school unless it's an NES school?
Well, that's I guess like the HSD protocol. There was an issue. I tried to transfer during the open transfer period. and there was a typo and something happened. I went to HR and they identified the problem, but the window was closed. And I had 3 principals asking for me to transfer to their campus. And my principal said no to each of them because the window was closed and she didn't want me to move. So the only way I could move now is to either get a promotion or to go to NES. The promotion that I applied for was that position was cut. So now my only option is to do NES or resign. And since today's the 14th, today's the last day to leave the district.
So what do you want to do?
I want to leave my school.
Well, all right. I don't have enough information to answer your question. Who's your rep?
That I do not know.
All right. So Karina or somebody get with her, and your question I can't answer.
What school are you at? Okay.
All right, somebody's going to get with you, Allison. Call over to the union when we get off of this, and somebody's going to get with you on this. That's a little bit more than I can answer on this because of the technical issue that you've got. There's and the problem that we have now is the district's closed today.
Is it? No, they're open on
Are they
Friday.
open today?
Yes, because I'm supposed to be going
Okay.
to sign my contract like right now.
All right, so let's see if we can't get something resolved. I can't imagine that we can't get somebody to do something on this. They've got openings all over the damn district.
Right. And I've interviewed, and they've talked to HR. I've got permission from the SSOs, but my principal is steadfast and she's saying, no, you can't do anything without my signature.
Well,
But
that's generally the case, but sometimes we can get somebody to put some heat on the principal. So let's see what we can do. All right. Does anybody else have a question about this NES thing?
I do.
Who's that? Eric?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
You know it. I thought I had a continuing contract with HISD.
How long have you been there?
This is my 28th year.
You do not have a continuing contract.
So
I don't think you've been there long enough.
No, it says on my paperwork, continuing contract.
Okay, well, maybe you do. I thought that they'd been gone longer than that.
No, no. I came
You're
in
muted,
just
Jackie. You're muted, Jackie.
So I think the continuing contract ended when I came to HISD in 1998, and I left with 33 years, and I didn't have a continuing contract.
Well,
Okay,
Okay.
well, I still have a continuing contract. This is Patricia. And I still have a continuing contract. My question is basically, is it gonna be honored?
yeah, they're not going to take it away.
Mm-mm.
They did not take away anyone's continuing when they stopped issuing them, if that's your question.
Right.
Okay.
And Eric, is that your question?
That's part of my question. Because when I called in about me having to reapply for my job, they told me yes. I said I was supposed to have a continuing contract with HR. This was HR I called, and she immediately said, was it from this office? I went on with my question, and she says, my question was, did I have to still sign? I didn't, I wanted to know, was it still going to be honored? And I'm listening to you saying that we still have a contract. I didn't, by me having to continue, I don't sign a contract every year.
Right.
I have it within the last, since I signed on with HISD.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that you're correct. You have a continuing contract. Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm sure you know what you have.
Yeah.
They cannot take away your continuing contract by saying you have to reapply for your job. Okay. And if they try, you need to get with the union immediately. If they say you're no longer employed here because you had to reapply and now we're not taking you, you call the union immediately because they cannot do away with your contract that way.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right. All right.
What is your campus, Eric?
Anybody else? All right, and I'm not, and I want y'all to understand that if you choose that you want to join this NES program, we are not saying you can't. All right, some people may look at it and say they want to do it. That is your choice. All we're saying is don't give up rights without understanding what you're giving up. But it is your choice to join this if you want to. We're not telling you can't join it. All we're saying is be cautious and understand what it is you're joining before you do it.
Chris, let me make a comment. You know, when we talk about giving up rights, perhaps not everyone understands what the current contract holds or what rights you have under your current contract. If you stop to look at your contract that you have now, under this old, and I'm going to call it the old HISD because we're stepping into like the twilight zone now. We don't know where we are, but in the old HISD, you had a defined workday, 7 hours, 45 minutes. You had your planning times. Most of you were not obligated to do duties as assigned by a principal unless you volunteered. We're going to change volunteered now in this new contract in the NES schools to voluntold. There's nothing you're going to be volunteered and asked to give opinions about. You're going to be voluntold what it is you need to do. And, you know, just by looking at the general view of the NES, you're talking about extending your workday. Okay. The hours, 6:30 to 5, and maybe to 5:30, it depends, because there's not going to be a defined workday. So you will be expected to show up when you show up and when they say. So the bottom line is this: you will be losing rights that you probably didn't know you just had. You took for granted, as we all do every now and then. But again, the bottom line is you will be losing. You're going to have a very defined, very strict, constrictive curriculum. It's going to be rote. You cannot deviate from that. You will be evaluated on that. So, you know, when you wanted to do cute things and bring them in, you're going to be very limited on what you can do as a teacher. Basically, you know, we sent out the blast yesterday, and there was a visual on there about a robot reading from a book and writing on a chalkboard. Well, put your little face in there if you go into an NES school, because that's exactly what it's going to be. There will be a very strict curriculum. There will be a very strict schedule, and that is the expectation, and you will be evaluated on that. Now, also in yesterday's blast, we did, like, we took I think it was a 20-year veteran as an example, and we kind of figured out and took apart, the staff did this, on what they were going to end up gaining as opposed to what they had now. Well, at the end, after you put in the extended workday, all the extra duty you're going to do, everything else that's being required of you, you're going to be losing $700+. You're not going to be making, you're going to be losing. So think about what it is that, number one, financially, your family can afford. Number two, what you want to do career-wise, because if you do not perform to the standard that Magic Mike says, then at this point, you're going to be losing your job, and you will be evaluated on that. It's purely based on performance. And understand, there's an underlying agenda here. And it's not the well-being of the children. It's not, oh, I'm going to look at teachers and hold them as professionals. If he holds you in high regard as a professional, he wouldn't be handing you a eaten up piece of cake, because that's essentially what it comes down to. It was a failure in Colorado. It's continuing to be a failure in Colorado. It was a failure in Dallas. Dallas is still reeling from the mess that he left behind. And if you thought you had it bad under Terry Greer, for those of you that were here under Greer, then baby, hang on to your drawers, because this is going to be a ride of the life. So think about what you're doing and what it is. You know, a lot of us do have obligations to family, after school, obligations to parents, obligations, other jobs. That's going to have to be cut because the expectations are there. When you sign that paper, that's exactly what it says. So read it carefully, understand and ask questions. If you don't ask questions, as a teacher, you're not growing because we're always educating ourselves as teachers. You never stop learning and you never stop growing. So my 2 cents.
This next.
Okay, Chris, this is Andy.
Yeah.
I just want to ask a simple question. Will any agreement they sign for NES supersede their current contract?
Well, I got to see how they're wording it. That's why I'm kind of being vague because I don't know what they're signing. And so until I know what the NES agreement says, I can't say that it's superseding the current contract or supplementing the current contract.
I see. But there is a possibility that by signing it, it's a possibility they may be giving up their continuing contract.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just don't know.
Okay.
And you know, the contracts are grounded in the Texas Education Code and in state law, but as the administrators found out, that can be waived. And so until we see the language that's written in this, I just don't know what they're doing. And so anyone who just takes it and signs it without getting some advice first might be making a mistake. But I don't know.
The word is caution. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else? Have I scared you enough not to sign this thing until we look at it?
You scared me and I don't even have to sign it.
You know, Chris, I think the threat is if you don't sign it, you're not going to lose your job, but they'll rescind your offer to go to NES. Now, that would be a threat from their perspective. I think it might be a blessing from the perspective of the person applying.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing that we have to look at here too is, you know, all of a sudden the verbiage is beginning to change. We saw one of the quote unquote invitations that you have been chosen and you're invited to apply and submit all your paperwork and what have you. If you look on that form, all of a sudden it ceases to be a definitive amount. It was always, he would quote 85, 90,000.
Right.
Now it's a range. It's 61.5 to 87.5. And there's not anything definitive in there. When you sign your contract, it's when they're going to give you your salary.
Right.
They will tell you how much you're going to be making.
Something tells me they'll be far more down in
within-
the 60 range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within 72 hours. Even they'll tell you how much it's going to be within 72 hours of you signing it.
Mhm.
So you're signing a contract and you don't know you're going to be making.
How many
They'll
people
let
would
you know
take?
later.
How many people would take a job like that?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
He was questioned about that last night at the community meeting. And one of the teachers said she was at first told she was going to be making 101,000. Then she was told she's going to be making 90,000. She got the contract. It didn't say exactly how much she was going to make. They told her they would let her know within 72 hours of signing her contract. He said he did not know that the system was like that. I don't believe that.
No,
I don't believe that.
that's bullshit. Excuse
I don't
me.
believe that.
Yeah.
You know, this is a great experiment for the charter business. You stop to look at every school that is NES and you correlate that to the area of the city, and you will immediately come to the realization that it's prime real estate property. And this district is real estate rich. So what these charters want, and if we look at the yeses and the KIPs and all these people, as soon as you enter a community where there's a charter, you immediately see a very, very nice, and it doesn't matter, you know, how disenfranchised that community is. You see a very nice, excuse me, community that is walled off They have beautiful homes inside those walls. And directly across the street or right next to that community is a charter school. So the Perrys and the Lexar Homes and everybody else, the Lennars, they're all interested in this movement because why? It's all about money. No one cares about these kids. No one cares about these disenfranchised communities. Nobody cares about teachers. The business world cares about money, and these are businessmen. And that's what this is about. If we stop to look at the changes that this man has made, he came in and he was going to empty that swamp. All those people in administration, high level, that were not doing their jobs. Well, guess what? We just recycle the trash. Every single chief, SSO, they did not leave by being thrown out the door. They simply were placed somewhere else. And if you look at the money that's being spent on these salaries, in some cases, it's increased. It hasn't decreased. So we're spending more money for, and if you look at that organization chart, oh my God, that's a Rubik's Cube, because you have so many mid-management positions now, 3 times more than you had before. And it's different levels. There's like 3 added levels now in between what used to be the chief and now what is the principal. And so when you start to look at all this, how can anybody really take this man seriously? And how can you have any trust in this person who says something publicly and just, oh my God, this is a savior. God bless him. He has a beam of light walking behind him. But all he is the Wizard of Oz. He's a tiny little man behind a curtain making big promises about big dreams, and he can't make it come true. And you ask yourself, where's he going to get all this money? Well, that's very simple. Those businesses that want in the district, the testing business, all of the curriculum, the different curriculums that are out there, these are all people that are bringing money to the table. And not to mention all of the Walton family. You have Gates out there. They're all here. They're all here. And that's where he's getting the money. But by doing that, you're selling your soul to the devil, and you're selling the soul of every child and every teacher in this district also. And that's what it's about. It has nothing to do with getting these schools out of low performing. If that were the case, and that was the plan, Governor Hot Wheels would have been able to do that a long time ago. And he hasn't been able to do that. And he hasn't done it. And simply because it did not behoove him to do that. And none of them, because they're all in the same boat. Marath, him, and Magic Mike. So.
All right. Well, unless anybody else has a question, I think we're done. Anybody? Last chance.
There's one in the chat. If
Go
I'm not,
ahead, Jackie.
if I'm not at a certain salary and I decide to sign the contract, is there a possibility that my salary can decrease?
I don't see why not. If you sign a contract and they say, we'll tell you what your salary is, then you take what you get. You agreed to a salary that you would find out about. And so, yes, I don't know why it couldn't decrease. Because you agreed to that. Now, I guess that you agreed to the range, but there's nothing in writing that says what that it's guaranteed at that range. That's what troubles me. One of the things that troubles me about this is the salary is a moving target, and I wouldn't take a job where I didn't know what my salary was going in. I just wouldn't do it. And so it's very troubling to me. That's
Okay.
a good question. Whoever asked that's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Because I can assure you, if they have a range of 61.5 to 87, and you sign without knowing, your salary's gonna be 61.5.
That's right.
I mean, it stands to reason. If he can get by, if you signed a blank, it's like writing a blank check. If you don't put an amount in there and you giving up your power to the person that's gonna be cashing the check. I mean, I just wouldn't do it.
If
So,
all they give you is a bottom number and a top number, and there are no years of experience tied to it, they
Right.
can put you anywhere in there. That's exactly what they've been wanting to do with your salary for decades.
Mhm.
And we've been able to stop that year after year after year.
Dave has his hand up.
Yeah, so I've talked to a couple teachers now who've received the recommendation and then a range, and then they finally heard back about the actual number. And they've been pretty pleased with the number they've gotten. It's generally been more than what they're currently making, but there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. Like that's not necessarily based on their experience, because some people have had, they've got X amount of years and they're getting X dollars more, whereas somebody with more years or fewer years is getting a different amount that doesn't seem like it matches up. And of course, the concern there is like, yeah, maybe they're giving you 20 grand more than you're making now this year, but there's no evidence at all that they're going to have the funding to do that next year.
Or that'll
And
be the case next year.
there's it's quite likely that because they gave you that range, that's basically a way for them to set you up for next year when they're like, well, you were originally given a range, and now because of funding or whatever, whatever you made last year is going to be cut down to 2/3 of that original fund. So it might look good right now. And like I said, like some of the offers that I've heard from people last night and today have been pretty generous, but again, they're coming with longer work hours and no guarantee that you're not going to have a lower salary next year.
Well, and the salary range is the hospital model. It depends on if you, for example, an ELA teacher a middle school teacher is going to be the top paid teacher. But if you teach ELA math, you won't make as much. If you're an elementary teacher, you won't make as much. And high school teachers will make less than than middle school teachers. So it's so convoluted. It depends on what you teach, what level you teach it at. And I don't think experience has anything to do with it.
No, probably not.
Which
And
is,
it seems like there's definitely perks for classes like the art of thinking, like Miles' little
more.
pet projects. Those are
Mhm,
definitely going to be compensated more because he wants to
Mhm.
see those succeed. But
mhm.
again, there's no guarantee that, if he offered you 100 grand that you're going to get that next year.
Jennifer asked a good question. Once we receive our contract, who should we email it to for advice? Email it to the union. Jackie, who do you want them to email it to at the union?
Call the office and find out who their staff rep is, and it will
Okay.
go to their staff rep
All right.
or the
And-
staff rep on duty.
And look, everybody, I'll be looking at this once they start coming in. I can't have everybody email them to me, but I'll be
Right.
taking a look at them. And they're all going to be virtually the same. So I'll just need one or two of them to look at, make sure they're all the same. But I'll be giving the union advice, and then we'll have a cohesive set of advice coming out once we start getting these things in to look at. So call the union, and then we'll get them in, and then I'll take a look at it, and we'll get some advice back out to the union real quick on it. So
Right.
just call your rep, call over to the office, get your rep, and get them over there, and then we'll get some guidance out real quick on it.
Try to let us if anybody gets that contract or whatever you get that they're asking you to sign, please get it to the office right away, so we can have the attorney look at it. Because like you said, Rich, they're all basically going to be the same. We
Right.
just need to make sure we get a good handle on what it looks like. And the sooner we do that, earlier today we do that, the better off we all are.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. As always, you do whatever you can to help us out and protect our
You bet.
teachers. We really appreciate that. If there are no other questions, Chris, I don't want to have to start paying you by the hour, so we'll let you go ahead and go. Anybody else? Okay, then have a good day. Please keep us, if you have any problems or any questions, please don't hesitate to call the office and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can.
All
Thank
right,
you
guys.
so
Have a
much.
good day. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet.